Hello, class. You've probably heard the term momentum used before in the context of competitive Pokemon. Someone probably said that you lost momentum in a game, or that someone has a lot of momentum in a game, or that a passive Pokemon like Dondozo or Clodsire is a momentum sink. It's a term that a lot of players use, but many don't understand. And it's fair to be confused since many players have their own idea of what momentum really means. The actual physics definition of momentum is just mass multiplied by velocity. Colloquially, it's more commonly used to mean something that's going in the right direction at a fast pace. So you might say that an actor landing a lot of roles in big new movies has a lot of momentum. But what does it mean to have momentum in competitive Pokemon? Well, nobody exactly knows. I reached out to several top players that have been in the community for a long time and asked them how they would define momentum. Each one had a different answer. Some said it means having control of the game. Others said it means you're not giving your opponent any free or easy turns. Some said that you have to be winning to have momentum, but most said that you can have momentum whether you're winning or losing the game overall. I synthesized all of these perspectives to create a definition for momentum that most players can agree on. Having momentum means maintaining an advantageous position where you are constantly putting pressure on your opponent. Note that being in an advantageous position doesn't necessarily mean you're winning the game overall, merely that the series of turns where you have momentum are going well for you. And when I say putting pressure on your opponent, I mean that you're making plays that are difficult or impossible for your opponent to handle without ending up in a worse overall position in the game. Applying pressure can happen in many ways. It can be obvious, like clicking powerful attacks turn after turn, or it can be more subtle, like setting up entry hazards or slowly chipping down your opponent's team with a cycle of pivoting. Let's look at some examples to make it more clear what momentum really is, starting with an obvious one. Here, I have an Adamant Choice Band Hoopa Unbound against a Stall team. I one-hit KO Specially Defensive Gliscor with Terra Dark Hyperspace Fury, so I lead with Hoopa, Terra Dark, and click Hyperspace Fury, over and over again. I'm in an advantageous position, and I'm definitely putting pressure on my opponent, so I have momentum here. My opponent sacking Dondozo on turn 5 finally puts an end to my momentum. They're now able to go into Alomomola and survive my attack, threatening to one-hit KO me with a flip turn. I'm forced to switch out. This is often how it works. You basically exchange momentum for gaining an advantage in the game. I lost momentum, but I killed Dondozo, which is a good deal. Having momentum is nice, but being ahead in the game is better. You can also maintain momentum even if one of your Pokemon dies. Against this Sticky Web team, I get an early turn 1 kill against Ceruledge with my Choice Band Dragapult. This, combined with just having a good matchup, allows me to force a cycle of trading KOs that benefits me later. I let Cinderace and Dragapult die, but I continue to click attacks, keeping the pressure on my opponent every turn. I know that if I just keep the offense up and maintain momentum, there's nothing my opponent can do to win. Keeping up this constant pressure helps me swiftly win the game. Having momentum doesn't just mean spamming attacks though, you can also have momentum if you're doing no damage at all. In this game, I can see right away that my opponent has no grass resist, so I lead with Ogerpon Wellspring to click Power Whip. My opponent wisely leads with Toxapex, so I can't get a kill right away. I don't want to get hit with a Toxic, so I U-turn into Galarian Slowking. My Galarian Slowking has Future Sight, and if I click that against Toxapex, I'm in a fantastic position. I can simply Chilly Reception to Ogerpon Wellspring and guarantee a kill with Power Whip plus Future Sight. But it would be really bad if I click Future Sight as my opponent switches into Hisuian Samurott. That's why I'm instead constantly switching between Galarian Slowking and Tornadus, waiting for my opponent to switch. In this position, I have momentum. Obviously, nothing has happened yet, no Pokemon is dying, nothing has even taken any damage at all, but this position is very much in my favor, and I'm putting pressure on my opponent. There's no easy out for them. If my opponent switches out on my Chilly Reception or U-turn, that's great for me. I can threaten Samurott, Garganacl, Great Tusk, and Rotom with Ogerpon Wellspring, and either get a KO or force them to Terra. And if Zamazenta comes in, it loses its Dauntless Shield boost, and I can easily force it out with my Galarian Slowking or Tornadus. If my opponent continues to not switch out, I can simply Future Sight, and now my opponent is in a horrible position. So, despite the fact that not a single point of damage has been dealt, I have a lot of momentum. Eventually, I click Future Sight, Chilly Reception into Ogerpon Wellspring, and get the kill. When I kill that Samurott though, I lose my momentum. I cashed in my momentum check when I killed Hisuian Samurott, and I exchanged it for an advantage in the game. And that's what you want to do with momentum. Just having momentum is not the same thing as pushing the game in your favor, because you can lose momentum without gaining an advantage. In this game, I had momentum from the second my Galarian Slowking hit the field against Toxapex. From that moment on, my opponent was basically trapped. But what if I immediately used Future Sight instead of pivoting around, and my opponent switched into Hisuian Samurott? Then I'd have to respond defensively with Corviknight. That Future Sight would go to waste. My Corviknight is now vulnerable to Razor Shell defense drops, critical hits, or Encore. I had momentum, but I wasted it. There are other ways to waste momentum. What if I'm doing my switching cycle, and as Hisuian Samurott enters on Chilly Reception, I go into Corviknight instead of Ogerpon? Once again, that momentum I had is wasted. Had I gone into Wellspring, I would either get a kill or force a lot of damage and burn Zamazenta's Dauntless Shield. My opponent had no answer. Corviknight, on the other hand, is super easy for my opponent to deal with. The momentum I had, the opportunity to push the game forward in my favor, was wasted. In this case, Corviknight is a momentum sink, because it drained my momentum by being so easy to switch into. That's why you hear so many defensive Pokemon called momentum sinks or momentum drains. Dondozo is a classic example of a momentum sink because it's notoriously easy to switch into. Dondozo almost never puts pressure on your opponent. It's there to help you against threats that would otherwise put pressure on you. Momentum can also be lost in ways that aren't your fault at all. Maybe my Ogerpon's Power Whip just misses and I die to a Samurott Ceaseless Edge into Sucker Punch. Or the Samurott could just be an insane set, like a Choice Band Terra Dark Sucker Punch, and one-hit KO my Wellspring with a lucky roll. Okay, so now you understand what momentum is and how it can be lost. How does this help you become a better player? How can you use the concept of momentum? Well, generally, it's not really a concept you use. It's more so just a term to know that can help you discuss battles with others in the competitive Pokemon community. In a similar vein, knowing that a combination of 6 offensive Pokemon is called Hyper Offense isn't really something you can use to become better at the game, it's just a word you know that helps you engage with the community. If you often find yourself in what you think is a good position, but you feel like you end up losing that position without making significant progress, it could be that one of your issues as a battler is wasting momentum. Knowing what momentum is may help you identify these situations better and help you explain what you struggle with to others. The most common reason I see for why people waste momentum is habit playing. Habit playing is basically when you respond the same way to similar situations every time, regardless of the game state. It's most common in mid-level players that have enough experience to understand and memorize common interactions, but not enough awareness to realize that they're habit playing. For example, one way I demonstrated that we could waste momentum is by going into Corviknight against the Hisuian Samurott. Ogerpon Wellspring is way better here, but a habit player might simply be used to switching Corviknight in against Hisuian Samurott, and so they wouldn't even consider Wellspring. Maybe they're used to playing a team where the best Samurott answer is Corviknight. Habit playing isn't the only thing that could make you waste momentum. It could also be that you generally play too passively, or that you panic when you see certain Pokemon. It could be any number of things, but it's usually habit playing. If you find yourself making plays very quickly and you end up regretting them later, this is a major symptom of habit playing. I made a whole video breaking this down and how to overcome it. I'll link that in the description for those who want more details. But anyway, back to momentum. I want to reiterate, understanding what momentum is and what it means gives you another term in your vocabulary for discussing the game with others, but it is generally not something you want to actively think about when playing. Trying to incorporate the concept of momentum in your gameplay, or looking for opportunities to gain momentum when playing, isn't a good idea. The advice I'd give is, think a few turns ahead on more difficult turns. I wouldn't say keep an eye out for opportunities to gain momentum. That's just adding mental clutter to a game that's already extremely complicated. Now, before I end the video, to restate, my definition for having momentum is maintaining an advantageous position where you are constantly putting pressure on your opponent. And remember that having momentum is different than just being ahead in the game, because unlike being ahead in the game, which, although it can be lost later, is a guaranteed advantage now, the advantage of having momentum can be completely squandered and lost due to bad playing, bad RNG, or some other factor. Sometimes maintaining momentum and getting ahead in the game is the same thing, like when my Hoopa was clicking Hyperspace Fury, but in other cases you can have momentum without getting ahead in the game, like when I was pivoting around against that Toxapex. Some people will undoubtedly disagree with my definition. Some may prefer to call it momentum when a player just has a series of great predictions. Some may like my definition but add extra restrictions, like a player must be winning to have momentum. But most people, I expect, will agree with this definition. And part of the point of this video is to establish a definition for momentum that we can mostly agree on, so it won't confuse people so much. A word with multiple meanings that are difficult to discern even with context isn't a very useful word. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer them all. And if you enjoyed the video or got something out of this, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. It helps out a lot. Well, that's all. Class dismissed.